The pandemic caused isolation for so many of us over the past 17 months, but it was especially hard on our seniors.
So how are they doing now that things are opening back up, and how can we all help them? We welcome aging expert Anthony Cirillo here with us today. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, welcome back. You know, it's great. Yes.
Feels great to be back and doing things
amongst people. Yep.
Most of us are enjoying the transition out of isolation, but how are our seniors doing today, sir?
Yeah, so most are emerging fine, but we have to remember a couple things. There's 30% of seniors who are not vaccinated yet, so they're still isolated, right? Or they should be. In some cases, they're taking extra precautions. Before the pandemic, there were 8 million seniors who were living alone, right? So we have to remember that that's still an issue because some of them backtracked during the pandemic and came out of the pandemic in different ways. The other thing is 3/4 of Americans experienced social isolation and anxiety during the pandemic, not just seniors. And a study just last Thursday was crazy. It said even people emerging from the pandemic are still feeling socially isolated even when they have social contact. So the bottom line with all that is that everybody's emerging from this in a different way, and we have to be mindful of that, you know, in their mental and emotional state. That's the big thing.
So you mentioned being mindful of that. So how do we know if all that isolation is still impacting a loved one long term?
Right. So the AARP has a site. It's called connecttoeffect.org, and basically you can go on there and take an assessment. Now the questions I'm going to kind of parrot here are some of the things that, you know, you probably think of, like, are you involved in family activities? Are you involved in social activities? Do you have access to transportation? If you're in a social setting and, you know, you have trouble understanding because it could be hearing issues. Have you had a major loss in your life over the last 6 months because maybe you need to talk to people? Do you have access to transportation? Because if you don't have transportation, you can't get around. A lot of the things that were before the pandemic that caused social isolation, but again, because of the way it's been exacerbated through the pandemic, it's how we're emerging is the big thing.
So what can we do to make our older population feel better?
So again, just reverse the questions, right? Reverse the questions. So, you know, build and maintain friendships, get involved in social activities. If you can't get out, I've launched something called Sage Stream. It's a senior entertainment network. We actually do live stream programming every day for seniors in all settings. So that's something to think about. Talk to your family and your friends. You may want to get a pet. My wife and I thought about a pet during the last year, but we decided we traveled too much and it wouldn't be right for the pet. So we didn't do that. You know, research your transportation options. Go to a doctor, you know, and get your ears checked out, you know, your hearing checked out, because really that is a real detriment. I know I joke that, you know, I'm a member of a club up in Huntersville, and, you know, we've been there 20 years, but now that we're older, when we go in there, all of a sudden we can't hear each other like we used to. So it's like, yeah, we maybe need to think about that. And, you know, if there has been a big loss in your life, people suffer depression. So you really want to think about how do we get help? How do we talk to each other?
So is there anything else that we should be mindful of when we're addressing social isolation?
I think the big thing is that it's not just older adults, right? That you look at those couple studies I mentioned in the beginning, there's a lot of people that are affected by this. I can tell you last year at this time, and I don't mind saying I'm very transparent, my wife and I went through a great period where we were depressed. We were socially isolated from our family in Philadelphia. We did a lot of self-assessing. And so if you're going through something or somebody else, get help or ask them to get help. And the other thing is try something every day that can alleviate social isolation, like talking to people or taking a walk in nature, doing something to break the cycle and getting out.
That's right. Break the cycle and get help if you need help. For more information, you can go contact theagingexperience.com. Visit that website. Mr. Anthony, thank you very much, sir.
Always a pleasure.